Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. A very, very good day to you. Hopefully, you are well, and may the peace and blessings be with you wherever you are. I need you to sit back and relax and enjoy this edition of Life Matters as we deal with a parenting issue, and that is raising your child within the Islamic environment in accordance to Quran and Sunnah, building a strong family, building that strong foundation within your family with the good Islamic values and how you want your family to grow. And remember, you, and we're going to say this often, you are the first example. It starts with you. We are doing a series with a social worker and Alima, Yasmina Samai, and she's taking us through addressing raising healthy and happy children. And we are the leaders for that. So let's welcome her back into our Cape Town studio. We're linking up with her. Assalamu alaikum to you, Yasmina.
Walaikum salam, Hawa.
Shukran so much for joining us once again. We appreciate your time in the series of raising a happy and healthy family and children within a happy family and environment. And today we're specifically wanting to build that strong family unit in accordance to Quran and Sunnah. So if I could start off with the parent, as we are the base and we need to be, the pillar. Why is it that the parent needs to be educated when starting a family? So even on the offset, because we don't learn exactly how to parent, we don't learn how to start a family. We learn through our parents and what we see, community, and of course the flashiness of what's painted on television. So in your opinion, your professional opinion, why does parents need to be educated when it comes to raising a family?
Yes, so this I always vouch for parents to do, and there are various courses. I myself give some courses, and I've attended courses, parenting courses, where you focus on what is the best way to raise your child within your specific environment. And just like you say, Hawa, so we do find that where do we take our knowledge from? Where do we take our practices, how we raise our kids from? We take it from our parents. So if we had a positive experience with our parents, we would then say, okay, I turned out fairly great. My parents raised me well, and that's why I would just copy and paste their methods into my time. And we touched on this last week as well.
Yeah.
And if we had a negative experience, they will then say, oh no, I had a negative parenting experience. Maybe they were authoritative in nature. Maybe they were dominating in nature. So that means, okay, well, that didn't work for me. I have a very bad relationship with my parent. So I would then be the opposite. I will be a friend to my child then, which can also be detrimental. So it's very important to look at where are we taking our knowledge from. And I say this so many times, but we go out to study at university. We study 4 years for social work, 4 years for teaching, whatever, medicine, whatever it is, to do a profession for a couple of years now. But you stay parents from the time that you give birth right up until you pass away, until you lose your child. So what training do we have in that? Yeah. So do we go blind and just wing it? And many people actually say, oh, it comes naturally. No, to a certain extent, yes. So a female, perhaps she's able to breastfeed now, she's able to do those things. Those, yes, naturally, Allah granted you that, most females that. But to know how to raise your child within your environment, within the specific issues that you find yourself in. So, for example, we find ourselves in a crime-ridden area. So to have the skills to be able to protect our children, but still giving them enough leeway to be able to, meet those milestones in their life when they're able to fend for themselves, meet new people, find a job, find friends, etc. So definitely there's a lot of importance placed on education for our parents. And just the last thing to add on that is, remember, when you come together as a couple, you have the male and the female coming together. You have very different experiences growing up.
Yeah.
Your wife had a certain way she was reared, the husband has a certain way he was reared, and now you're coming together, you wouldn't want also to clash. So what is your moral compass then? So is it going to be he says, she says, oh, this worked for me and my parents, but he's going to say this worked for me and my parents. So what is your guiding principle? And that is why our guiding principle always, whether it's the topic of raising children, whatever it is, it's always our Sharia. But then again, do you know your Sharia enough to be able to then use it as your guiding principle in raising your children. So very important how I used to educate yourself prior to having children, even prior to getting married.
Yeah. So it all starts there. And I think the conversation couples never have because they're high on the love tonic and they don't seem to think beyond just being with each other. I look at the young couples now, my younger kids also getting married, and the more you talk to them about preparing marriage, alhamdulillah, they're going for marriage classes. They're just, high on being together and, making it happen. So, inshallah, it is important for us to start as parents to be that role model. But also, what would you say are some of the key principles and values in Islam that parents should prioritize when raising your child?
Yes, so like I said, we take oftentimes we take and then they would say so maybe especially when I see parents and we're sitting for whatever issue maybe they might have picked up in their kid when their children or so, and then they would speak about, oh, but my mother did this, but this is our tradition and this is what Islam says. But not to say that a lot of the things, a lot of the good things that we were taught when we were younger, the way we were raised, yes, probably has its foundations in Islam. But we don't take our Islam from he said, she said. We take our Islam from sources that are that we know. Okay, these are scholars within the specific fields. So this field would be tarbiyah. So this would be a chapter in tarbiyah specifically in fiqh, and this should be something that is very important for us to learn. And a lot of times the excuses are, but oh, these books are written in Arabic and we're not able to access it, which is true, yes, and a lot of the good things are still in Arabic, but there are good books also written in English. People have taken the time to translate these works. So there are good books that guide us with the way the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and the way Allah wants us to raise our kids. And it even says, it speaks blankly about what are the rights of the kids. If we look at how Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam interacted with his children, how well he treated them, and how very important, and something that we also touched on last week was the fact that he very much led by example. And that is something that many of our parents today, we can't say it. We expect certain things from our kids, not realizing that we are not showing those very same characteristics that we want them to have as a child or as a grown up. We're not expressing that ourselves. So it's little things like allowing, and I think you mentioned this also last week when you mentioned that giving the kids the ability to, if it's a male, for example, giving them the ability to speak about their emotions, to speak about whatever it is that their specific issues that they find, being a male, being in the context of Cape Town, Johannesburg, whatever it is, to be able to allow them to feel those emotions. But taking a step back, how does a child know that they're capable of doing those things? How do they know this is an environment that is okay and safe for me to do that? And to be, if the parents set that example. And just a simple example would be when a couple, the mother and the father, when they have an argument or a disagreement, then there's all this heat, this anger going around. And remember, you are so focused in your argument and you're so focused in winning that argument that you forget that you have a whole audience in the lounge, wherever it is, watching you and how you respond to things. And not to say that when you are in this heated anger or heated emotions, that you are allowed to express it, but you need to also reflect. And if it is that you might have already expressed these emotions in a way that you feel is not something you would want your kids to do, then what you do, and this is very big that many parents aren't able to do, but they should reflect on what has occurred. And if your children were witness to that, it would take a very big individual to be able to sit down with the kids and rectify that mistake.
Yes.
So if you can say, can you see mom threw the glass because she was so angry, or somebody raised their hand or so. And I'm not oblivious to the fact that these things happen. We don't want them to happen. It's haram, but these things happen. Then we take a step back and we say, okay, I need to correct this with my child. We wouldn't want our children, we wouldn't want our daughters to see that this behavior is okay and acceptable. We wouldn't want our males to see that this is the way to treat the females in the family, and vice versa. So you would go down and you would sit with them and you would correct the mistake. Very important. So you would say to them, when mom did that, that was the wrong way to handle that situation. And you can say, it showed it showed that perhaps mom was angry, but what mom actually felt at that time was perhaps of hurt. Maybe we felt sadness. Maybe we felt lonely at that time. So try and assist them in identifying, okay, what is it that mom found herself in that situation at that point in time. And then even speak to them about what would have been the correct way to handle that situation from their point of view. And in that way, when you engage with them and you engage with where their thinking is, where their mind is, this will then, inshallah, make a big difference in how that communication between the two of you, but also how they perceive situations.
And also to explain to them what's going on. Often we just leave these things in the air, and like you said, then they think that is how it's handled. We'll talk more with social worker Yasmina just after the short break on the rights of children and raising your child within an Islamic environment, what you need to know about that. Stay with us. Just after the short break, we'll continue this conversation. Back in a moment. Welcome back. Raising a happy and healthy family in a happy home is our discussion as we create that strong bond between Quran and Sunnah when raising your child. How do we sort of initiate the love for the Quran, the love for the Sunnah? How can we implement using some resources? And how can we educate ourselves? Because it starts with us. Welcome back, Yasmina. She's chatting to us from the Western Cape in Cape Town. Let's look at, children's rights. What does that mean when we say they are children have rights in Islam?
So this should be our guiding principle when it comes to raising kids. So it would be to make sure that all their needs are being met. And when I mention I'll mention all the rights of the child. But remember, this is not only from a Shariah perspective, but this is also from a South African law perspective. At the moment, I just completed a workshop now in child protection. And it's shocking how many of these rights of our children, within this context of Cape Town specifically, how this is being violated. And me telling you all these rights, maybe there are more fortunate individuals listening here, and you would think, oh, but yes, man, this goes without saying. One would think that, but actually what's happening in society today, it's terrifying. So I think it's always important to mention what are these rights of the kids. So it should be a name nationality. So this is very important just for the sense of belonging for our children. And I mean, this is one of the first rights that we have, our name giving of the child within maybe a week or so after the child is born. And we also have institutions to make it big, and we have all the family coming over, and it's beautiful, mashallah, but actually you are already giving that first right to the child. And then the right to care, and care is broad, but care is to just be able to, because remember, a child is not able to, at the beginning of their lives, they're not able to voice, these are the things I need right now. But you being tuned into what the child needs, that is providing that care. And even when they're older, they might not be able to express it well. So being able to assist them with how to express what they need, being able to see to those needs, even if they aren't able to express those needs. And then nutrition. Nutrition is also, this is very important, because some individuals think it's enough, okay, my child is just, they're eating, so that's fine. No, nutrition is much more than that. It is what does the child require? All of the basic needs must be met with regards to food. So are you giving the correct portions? When they are infants, are you already giving them food that's not age appropriate? So these things, and you think, okay, this goes without saying, but you find in clinics that this is not the case. Children, because they're not able to, sometimes it's really difficult, the mothers need to work, they're not able to breastfeed, and many of us know how expensive milk is, the powdered milk to buy for our kids. And because they are not able to afford this, and I always make the joke that if I were to earn just so much money, I would buy so much of these cans of milk and just distribute it, because it's so sad how many children have these various illnesses stemming from the fact that they're not getting breast milk from their mother, and they're not getting the powdered milk that has what they need, and they're being fed things like pap or things like rice or things that are affordable at that time. And we're talking about young infants. And then shelter. Shelter is very important. So don't think that, oh, you're just putting a roof over your head, that's enough. No. is the environment that you put in the child in safe? Is it conducive to living? Are the nails laying everywhere? With the roof fall in? Things like this you need to consider. Actually, this is already before even having kids. And we're talking about, obviously, we're talking about within wedlock. So we're talking about a husband and wife that came together to within marriage and then having a child. This was already the right of the female. So it should have been established then prior to having a child. But this is not the reality of the world. But the right of the child, only talking from a child's perspective, is to have a safe environment to be raised in.
Yeah.
And so healthcare is also very important. So and this is also quite sad that many of us are not able to afford the transport to be able to go to clinics. We don't have the ability to take off a day from work to be able to sit in our queues at clinics to be seen to for our kids to be seen to. And all of us that have kids know that little booklet, that blue booklet, and it has on there all the injections and say that the child needs up until the age of 2.
Yeah.
So all of those things, those are all the rights of the child because you are protecting the child from various illnesses and diseases at a later stage in life. So this is the right of the child. This is not a choice that you have. And then protection, especially in the context we find ourselves in now, we need to make sure that our child is protected. And not all of us have the ability to afford houses in the best of areas, to go to the best of schools. But within your means that you have to provide that safe environment, if it is that you know that your child is being picked up and dropped off by somebody that you trust at the correct times, that they don't have to, if it's not a safe space to walk, I know this is not the reality for everyone, but that you are able to walk them back and forth from school. All these things, so this is also very important. And then lastly, education. Education is the right of the child, so to be schooled within, I would say, secular knowledge. I don't really like to say secular knowledge because I do feel, because now you say Islamic knowledge and secular knowledge, but all knowledge is almost fine. But okay, let's say secular knowledge, so grade 1, 2, 3, or so on. This is also the right of the child because this is what not only allows them to reach those milestones, but will allow them to then go to high school and then eventually seek employment. But it's also the right of the child that you seek education to be able to see to their needs. So it's also a right of the child, your education. So if you are not in a space where you're able to afford these various needs that I mentioned, then it's up to you then to upskill yourself or do something to be able to learn, educate yourself to be able to provide for your family. So these are some of the rights. Obviously, you could have spoken. There could have been a whole
show.
Just on this, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's just a basic idea.
So understanding, inshallah, when those rights are established and we sort of understand it, not just shelter to say, this is nafaka, I give my wife and children food to eat, that's enough, a roof over their head. There comes that emotional stability as well that you need from both parents. So let's look at when children are, learning still. And often they make mistakes and they still, finding their feet. And there actually comes a time and place where children, because of, not correcting them or correcting them, you find that their personalities is formed through that. Like a child of 2 years old, oh no, they're still young, let's not correct them. So let's talk about, children of different ages when they do make mistakes. How do we recoup from that and how do we teach them?
It's funny to see that at the age of 2 and you don't correct them because it's cute maybe till the age of 2, but at some point everybody around you will find that this child's actually disrespectful.
Yeah.
And just a simple thing that we have is saying you.
Yeah.
So to an adult, to an older person. So those little things that might not be an issue maybe around the world, but within our culture and the way we speak and so on, that respect that we have, these are also important things to educate our kids with. But yes, so our kids are bound to make mistakes. It's actually just part of their development because they need to be able to establish what is right, what is wrong. And this is where you come in. So, and I'm trying to stay away from using too many jargon terms and things like that. But I'm sure some of us have heard of Erik Erikson and his stages of development. And and you have Freud, etc. But I quite like Erik Erikson's way of thinking and his stages of development because this actually works very well hand in hand with what we taught. Now we actually raise our kids. So there's actually a stage of early childhood. It's called autonomy versus shame and doubt. And this is when you promote self-sufficiency in your children. And the next stage is when you is initiative versus guilt, which is when you allow them to initiate their own practices, whatever it is, and interests, but then you guide them. So this is very important in an actual stage of development. It's very important for them to break rules.
Yeah.
So what you do at that point in time, and it depends obviously at the severity of it, is very important. So if your child was, as I work quite a bit with children with ADHD, etc., and obviously there's behavioral issues, that's a little bit different because you might have to tackle things a little bit differently. And something that always works well is the reward system, and I don't want to say punishment, but consequences for negative action. That always works really well. But the way you handle a situation when your child does something wrong, it has to be age appropriate. So for your older kids, if they do something wrong, let's say they bunk school for some reason, maybe they're pressured and they decide, okay, today we're not going to go to school for whatever reason. You have to actually establish this trust or this connection with your child that even if it is that they do something wrong, but then find themselves in a situation where maybe it went out of control. Maybe they decided, okay, they're going to skip school for today, and by skipping school, they're going to go to a friend's house. And maybe things spiraled out of control to the point where now they find themselves in a very difficult, very dangerous situation.
Yeah.
Now it is that relationship between the parents and the child, the guardians and the child is very important. Because now, are you going to be the person that they're going to call or feel safe enough to be able to contact to take them out of the situation? So where does this stem from? This stems from previous accounts with you. So let's say for the first time they decide to skip school, how do you react to it? So did you come guns blazing and I don't know, maybe give hiding or things like that? Not saying that I condone giving hiding things like that, but this is the practices. So is that what you did? Did you ground them? Whatever it is that you did. But when you're able to communicate with him that I am actually not happy with the fact that you skipped school because I'm worried about your safety, it is because I care and love you that much that I now have to give a punishment, a negative consequence for your behavior in order for you to see how important it is for you not to do that again.
Yeah.
And that sounds very fluffy and very ideal to be able to handle a situation like this. But it comes with practice. It comes with having that connection with your child.
Yes.
And the overarching of all this is that you have to have this unconditional love with your child. That they know that they're going to break rules, they're going to do things that might be wrong according to you, that seems right to do in the situation at the time. But if they find themselves in a difficult situation, they know that, yes, my parents will be disappointed in me for doing this, but their love and their affection for me overrides that.
Yeah.
So they would first take me out of that danger,
and
then when there are still going to be consequences. So now when you take your child out and maybe they contact you, they say they find themselves in a very difficult situation. And you come and you pick them up from the situation, you take them out of that dangerous situation. Now you say to your child, I'm happy with the fact that you did that. But I am proud of you for the fact that you contacted me and you are aware of the fact that things were out of your control and that you trusted mom, dad enough to be able to take you out of that situation. Granted, there's still going to be a punishment, negative consequence for your behavior, but acknowledge the fact that they did something right within that element of doing
the incident,
incorrectly. Yes. So it's just to be able to tune into those little things. And I might not do that the first time. Maybe it takes you a day or two to cool off, but then on the third day you realize, oh, but that was maybe the good thing that the child did. And the moment it might seem wrong, but when you ask the child why did they do that specific, why did they do that negative thing, they actually found that they were protecting somebody or there was something good in that.
Yes.
Acknowledge it, but then educate them to be able to handle things better in other situations.
I actually had a very similar instance where the school called me and said my daughter had left to the bathroom to accompany somebody and she didn't have a lanyard and she didn't ask permission. And after she had come home and I moaned at her to say that they phoned and where's the letter that I need to sign because now it's a disciplinary thing. And at the end of the day, I had to sit and listen to her because it was something that she did with a friend, and the friend needed to accompany her to the bathroom because it's something that the friend needed. And I had to actually then turn the page around and say, listen, start all over and first acknowledge and then praise her for being there for her friend, listening to her friend, taking time out. But it is still a school, it has rules, blah, blah, blah. So it's very important that that you mention that let us first try and see the good in something before we just reprimand the child. So we'll talk more on, children's setting a good example, being there for a child, and we will talk about this endlessly, setting a good example, you being the first, because children follow you. With social worker Yasmina, but more just after this short break. Stay with us. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. Life matters because every life really does matter, as we talk to our social worker online, and we're doing a series of shows of how to raise a happy and healthy children in a happy home, of course, and you being the first one to lead them in the correct manner. And today we're specifically reviewing the Islamic environment in accordance to Quran and Sunnah, raising and building a strong foundation, that strong family. And just before the break, we used, talking to you, communicating with your little one, and also interacting with them no matter the age. You can correct them in the age-appropriate way and not just say to a 2-year-old if they're being disrespectful or rude. Because remember, they're trying to find their feet and they're trying to find themselves and their personality. So if you see something wrong, correct it in a playful manner because they're just 2 years old. So social worker Yasmina is online with us. Welcome back. You still with us, Yasmina?
Yes, still, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so we looked at some of the mistakes children make and, how we can recover and look at it. How do we become good examples? How do we set that best leader in our family, in our home, or from the offset already?
And I alluded to this earlier on, where remember when you're getting married or you're finding a spouse, just like you mentioned, you're blinded by love and you think, okay, this is such a handsome or beautiful girl, handsome guy, and you're blinded by these things. But we should actually, and this is what I do quite a bit when it comes to preparing females or young females prior to getting married. Then there's a checklist that we'd actually go through. It's a little booklet, and then we'd discuss things like, but did you even consider this is not only going to be your husband, but this is going to be the future father of your children. And taking a step back, this is not only going to be the individual that you are married to, so a friend or a spouse, but there's also going to be the person that's going to be responsible for maintaining you, your nafaka, so everything that you need. But add to that, if you were to decide to have kids, then it also is his responsibility to be able to nafaka your children, your shared children as well. So we don't always think about these things, and you don't always want to place emphasis on monetary. But I mean, these are the things that you should consider even prior to getting married. Are you okay with maybe the circumstances, but perhaps just when you get married or at the start of your relationship, you are not financially by the means to be able to have children. And I know there's going to be a lot of people coming at me saying that, but every child comes with their own, with their own baraka, their own
blessings.
So but and I understand that, yes, but remember, it's also your humanity, your responsibility to look after this child. And do you have the tools? I emphasize the fact, the educational aspect of it, but is your environment conducive to be able to raise a child? And I'm not talking about the fanciest crib and the best nappies and things like that. I'm talking about just the basic needs of the child. Because if you yourself are unable to meet your own basic needs, or you as a male are not able to meet the needs of your wife, and maybe she's okay with that, and she allows that she forgoes certain rights, then that's okay. That's agreed upon between the two of you. But remember, a child coming into this family unit, they can't come out and say, "No, Father, I give consent that I forgo my nafaka." No, they need it from the day that they are born. They need that. So are you giving your child the best footing from the very beginning as well? And if you are not by the means, is your family or your extended family by the means to assist you then in this? So it starts already by choosing a spouse. So that's maybe the financial aspect of it. But to go into choosing the spouse, and And remember, when you get married, we spoke about that you have different upbringings. But remember, you might also have different cultures, very different cultures. So are these things being discussed prior to getting married? Have you even discussed the possibility of not being able to have children? Because these are things that need to be discussed prior to marriage as well. And above that, have we discussed, okay, so you were raised in this particular way, and these are certain things that children have to go through within your culture. And religion is one aspect, yes, and that's the overarching that we have in common. But actually, if looking at the male from the male's perspective, you might also marry outside of the religion if that's the case. Then are these things understood? Because in your children would have to be raised Islamically. So are all these things understood prior to getting married? And remember, when you're choosing a spouse, and I mentioned the female choosing the husband, is he able to nafaka you? Is he able to provide maintenance for you? But looking at the male's point of view, remember, and not to go into the whole thing of breastfeeding and it's the female's right to decide and things like that, and not to all that payment because there's a whole chapter on that as well.
Yes.
But to just speak about the fact that okay, your wife is going to breastfeed your child. Have you spoken about the fact that maybe you want your wife to stay at home for the first 2, 3, 4, whatever years of the child's life? Have you discussed this with her? Or is this just a given because your mother had the privilege of doing this? So is this being discussed? Because these are and I've seen this. These are sometimes marriage breakers shouldn't be. You can discuss these things, but this is what, because remember the husband has a right to say that he would prefer you to be in the home. So are these things discussed? Is it not a norm in your family? Also, look at the female that you marry, because even if it is that she's okay to be at home for those couple of years to raise your children, and remember, don't think that you're asking the female to stay at home for 1 or 2 years of the child, because if you are planning to have 5 children, how many years are you actually asking her to be at home for? So not only is it that she's staying at home for that period of time to look after the children, remember she might not be able to go as far as you are in whatever job or employment that she has. She might not reach those positions. Have we discussed these things? Does she want some monetary assistance from you to be able to stay at home? Does she want security because she will never be able to earn assets? Things like this is what I usually would have to discuss with the females. Because remember, when you have your children one day, and you decided you wanted to stay at home, whatever it is, if she has ill feelings towards doing those things, if she doesn't enjoy, take wholeheartedly that job on, because remember your child is spending the entire day with their mother. If this is the case, is that environment going to be conducive for your child? Because they might be very unhappy, they might even go into depression. This might be things that they do not want, and this is now what you're putting your child. This is the situation you're putting your child in. And just simple things like the character of the individuals that you choose. Because remember, and this is just based off Ghazali's book, he then focuses more on the male being the individual that it needs to discipline, and the female being the individual that provides the love and the nurturing. So is your spouse, is maybe the husband somebody that have anger issues? And I'm saying anger issues just to put it very plainly, but does he have issues like this? Because then how is he going to discipline your kids? And then the female, is she nurturing? Is she able to raise your kids? Does she have maybe foul language? Because remember, she's breastfeeding your children. Does she have feelings of animosity? Is she unhappy? Is she suffering from depression and she needs a little bit of assistance, postnatal depression? All these things, it's your responsibility, because and it's never, people always say that couples must come 50-50 in. It's not always 50-50. And I actually think I mentioned this before. If you are only as the wife or the husband able to give right now 40%, because this specific scenario now is something that's not your strong point, then the other individual then has to give 60 or 70% to be able to compensate for that. So it's a team effort to be able to raise that family. Yes, definitely.
Absolutely. And I want to look at some of their guidelines and recommendations that you have through Islamic sources regarding the education of parenting, as well as, helping your child to be stable through our resources that you mentioned, Imam Al-Ghazali, rahmatullah alayh, and understanding that as we said, educate yourself. And you've mentioned earlier on about, not being ready for marriage. It's not always sometimes financial. And like you said, yes, there are many alims that's going to moan about that. But are you physically? Are you emotionally, psychologically ready to take on a child? Because sometimes, yes, the couples, they get married, they are still young and they're still children themselves. So do they just need to get to know each other? So there's lots of things, as you mentioned, and that just came up to my mind. So if we can look at any specific recommendations or guidelines through Islamic resources, Quran or Sunnah, that parents can use to raise their children.
So, to be honest, so alhamdulillah, I've been taught within the Arabic language. So a lot of the sources that I take from would be Arabic books, but there are English books also available. So I know that the book of Aramli, so raising kids, I know the Arabic name for the book was Tarbiyah. It was raising kids by Aramli. It was a book. It was translated. I know it's a grey cover.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Arabic books are
It's fine.
And then Al Ghazali's book. I might stand corrected, but I think it was a chapter taken out of Ihya. But I'm not too sure about that. Yeah.
And also not just books, excerpts from books, but like what we can use within Quran and Sunnah. And I think I'll just recap on that, inshallah, when we come back from our break. Please stay with us. We'll get into some of the nitty-gritties of how you can maybe implement some daily routines, how to love the Quran, how your children can still live a life of Sunnah through your implementation. Just shortly after this short break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back just after this. Welcome back. Assalamu alaikum and a very good day. Remember, you can join us on our live stream channel, Hilaal.tv, on the World Wide Web. And you can tell your family and friends to join us right now so they can listen into the show as we talk about creating that strong foundation, fostering Quran and Sunnah in your daily lives when raising your children, raising healthy and happy children in a happy home. We're doing a series on that, Happy Children in a Healthy Home, with social worker Yasmina, and also has an Alima background. So we're very happy to tap into that, some resources that she mentioned just before the break as well. But Yasmina, I want to look at, welcome back, and also remember you can catch our shows on our YouTube channel. It's uploaded the next day, inshallah. So any of the shows that you've missed is YouTube, Hilaal TV, Life Matters. So Yasmina, I want to look at some of the daily routines we can implement in our lives that will create and foster a love for Quran and Sunnah. So what are the little bits of practices that we can instill the love for Quran and not make them fearful? Because it's like, oh no, you're going to be punished. Oh no, Allah doesn't want you to do that. And it's also how we say it, we bring it across to our children. Because at the end of the day, I mean, Allah loves us more than a mother loves a child. He's closer to us than our jugular vein. So how close isn't he to us? So what are the sort of ways and methods to introduce the Quran, introduce Allah, the Sunnah into your child so they can love it?
Yes, this is excellent. Yes, because and the routine aspect is very important. And it's true what we say. When you raise your kids, you focus on the negative aspects. So you would say, don't do that. Allah's going to punish you. Don't do that. But we don't focus on the fact that when they do something good, you say, this is very good. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's a reward in this for you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is happy that you did these things. Can you see how you impacted this individual, that family, or so on by your good deed? So and it's difficult because, and this is usually what's also passed down by generations, is that we look at things first in a negative light before we look at it in a positive light. And we should train ourselves to move out of this, to be able to first, and like we mentioned before, acknowledge the good. And if there's something maybe that's negative, then correct the bad in a good way. And I sat now recently, I'm actually sitting with an elderly lady at the moment. And what we're discussing within our session is a balance between hope and raja. So this is hope and fear. And this is a little bit more of Aqidah, but I just thought this is be nice to mention now, something good to remember, because that relationship towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you don't want it to change as from a childhood to adulthood and to old age, but there's you balance between the two, khawf and raja, because remember, when you are young, then when you are very, very young and you are only getting to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so you're only now coming to the fact, oh, my parents make salah 5 times a day. Yeah, and I'm making the assumption that they are exposed to you making salah. And kids give it away very easily, because sometimes they would go to family members and they would say, and those family members are making salah, and they would say, but what are you doing? But they're already 5 or so years old, and that already gives it away that maybe that's what something they're exposed to in their homes. So if you maybe have a little bit of difficulty with making salah, think about these things. Children are very on board with these things. So when they're very young and they're still getting to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is when you want to instill a love. You first want to instill love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when you're trying to find the balance between khawf and raja, you will more go on the love, the hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. So if they're doing something wrong, and remember, they will do things wrong, like I've mentioned, it's part of these stages of development for them to break rules, to be able to establish to do this is right and to do this is wrong. So here you want to establish that love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you can say this is a negative behavior because of these consequences, yes, but stand focus on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves when you do it in this way.
Yeah.
And focus on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam being good, good, I don't say beings, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a being, yes, but as a positive, having a positive effect on the child, so that when they're going to make salah one day, and when you're making salah, they see it as something that, when my mom, my dad is angry with there's a certain situation, or they find difficulty, or they're emotional, when they make salah, they feel better. So this is again learned behavior, and I've put so much focus on learned behavior, but they see what the parents do. If it is that you've established, and this is what comes down from tradition also, when they say, no, you must get into the house before Maghrib time, and you eat together as a family, at least one salah, your Maghrib salah, your salah together. So these things that you install, it seems minor, and it seems like maybe annoying when you're a child, but to establish this in your family, it brings that if your child is, maybe it's not compulsory on them to make salah yet, then to know it, I have to make salah when it's Maghrib time, but this time I have to have my wudu. You're already instilling that when they're later and it becomes compulsory upon them. It's not so difficult to be able to then move into that realm of, okay, now my life, my work one day, my schooling, everything revolves around salah, because this is what was already instilled in me.
Yes.
So it's learned behavior. So it's that. But then also, whatever it is that you want for your child. So many parents say, I really want my children to be hufad. MashaAllah, that's great.
Yes.
That's true. But what you don't realize is, in order for your children to be hufad, it's a massive, massive uptaking from the parents' side. In order for your children to be hufad, it's not only their journey, it's yours. Because like I said, the children, they'll push boundaries, and it takes you to be able to have that, I don't say iron fist, but you must be able to then bring them back into, yes, the discipline. That's very important. So think about what are the things that you want for your child. You want them to be hufad. You want them to be leaders in society. You want them to be able to do and I also to take the opinion that the male should be able to do simple things like give maybe a name to their child one day. So train them to do those things, to be able to lead the salah, to be able to make the adhan, the iqamah, things like that. These are simple things that we should train our children to do. And females as well. I put so much emphasis on males because these are usually where they would do things in a public manner. So, yes, so this is very important, is to have these things within the home. And routine is very important. It brings that stability to the child. It is you think as an adult, it's nice to not have the rest of the day planned out hour by hour, and you like that you have not having something to do for the rest of the day, and you roll with things and see what happens. But it's very different for a child. A child needs stability. For the most part, they need to be able to have some structure to be able to know what's going to happen the next hour, the next hour. They need to be able to know that when my school finishes at this time, there's going to be somebody to pick me up.
Yes.
When I need to go to school, when I have a project that must be done, this is the time during the day where homework is being done. This is the time when I take a bath. These are the things. This structure, it might be difficult for you because now you also have to have that structure in your life. It might be difficult at the beginning for your child, but it creates so much calmness in a child, and I'm not even talking about a child that has mental health difficulties.
Okay.
It's actually it's compulsory. You have to have that for those kids, but because they need that routine. But just for all kids to have that routine, that stability, it's the best thing that you can do for them, to be able to know what to do at each time. So if it is that you place Islamic studies and Quran at the forefront, so you would have homework time, you would have Quran time. And you can't just expect your child to recite the Quran, but then you sitting at home watching whatever it is that you're watching.
Yeah.
It's a family Quran time. So yes, you lead by example, but stability and routine is very important. Yes.
Yeah, routine, absolutely on the top of the talking points when you are planning to have kids. So let's talk about challenges. How would you recommend parents, deal with challenges like peer pressure and outside influences that are not necessarily within the Islamic background? It actually contradicts your Islamic values and ethos and teachings. How does parents handle that?
Yes, and I mentioned this before that you ideally you would wish that you had some sort of device on your child to be able to watch their every move, but that's not the case. So you actually trust that your child, when they face with certain issues, that they will tell you. Because if they do not tell you, then you won't be aware of what it is that they're going through every day.
Yes.
So if they're being exposed to this on a daily basis at school, and just it's a touchy subject, but it's something that I'm also very much involved in as well, is the LGBTQIA plus movement. So this is things that our children are being exposed to, and don't think that you're sending your child to a Muslim school that they're not faced with these issues. They will be exposed to these things. So don't you want to actually beat the whole system, because remember at these things are also being compulsory to be taught within the syllabus.
Yeah.
So you want to be ahead of this. And how are you ahead of this? You need to be able to have these discussions with your children already. Have these open discussions with your children. If it is that you just touch on certain topics, if you touch on the fact that, and the simple thing is just becoming mukallaf. Is your child, if you know, okay, my child, I can see certain characteristics change within my children, and you know what to expect when it comes to males and females. Are you preparing your child for what is coming? Are you able to have an open conversation with your children to say that these are the feelings you're going to feel, and these are normal feelings? And have that open conversation with them. Because if not you, then who? Is it Google? Is it Facebook? Is it Instagram? Who are they turning to for this information? Because everywhere you go, and just simply looking at the issue in Gaza that we have at the moment, we can clearly see how Instagram is filtering things that they do not want our public to see. So can you already see that if this is that Gaza, Palestine now at the moment, can you see how they can also have the ability to push the agenda of things that they choose?
True,
so whether it is LGBTQIA movement, the feminist movement, whatever movement it is, they have that power to push that narrative to your child, whether you like it or not. So you need to be aware of all these things, and we can't have excuse we're not techno savvy and things like that. It's our responsibility, and it still falls under the education aspect. You need to be techno savvy. Because if your children are on these devices and your children are accessing these things, you need to be able to also access these things and monitor what it is that they are being exposed to.
Absolutely.
But like I said, you can't cover all aspects. So what do? You get ahead of it and discuss these things with them. Discuss the LGBTQIA movement. Discuss the feminism issues. And this is something that's really getting our females as well. I'm not going to get into the whole feminism issue, but discuss these things with your family, because then if it is at the supper table, if it maybe it's a bit sensitive and you have different age groups of children, discuss it alone with them. So it's very important, yes. But where does this come from? This comes from that connection between the parents. You can only have the sensitive discussions with your children if you have a good relationship with them.
Thank you so much. Shukran, Yasmina, again for your time. I think we're going to have to do a follow-up on raising our children in a way that the environment is Islamic and we can use Quran and Sunnah, and implementing a little bit more practical methods to enhance that ability when raising our children. But as always, I appreciate your time, and hopefully we can continue this conversation of raising a happy and healthy children in a happy home. All the best till we chat again. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
So that was Yasmina Samai Sali, our therapist online, and the Islamic therapist as she's known on Instagram and Facebook. So please get in contact with her if you want more information. But our next show, stay tuned. We're talking about skin conditions with Professor Kettle. She specializes in dermatology, pediatric dermatology. So any of your skin condition questions when it comes to children, please send it through to us via email and WhatsApp, and we'll get it through to her in our next show. From myself, Hawa Solomon, enjoy the rest of your day. Wassalamu alaikum and goodbye for now.